leadership. And when I read the article, I just resonated so strongly with the principles and the ideas that she was portraying. And I think it resonated so strongly simply because what she was saying was exactly the things that I had seen were missing in all of the companies that I'd been working to up to that point. So I managed to get hold of her on the phone, and we chatted for about 45 minutes, having never met her before. And I just basically asked her, what kind of courses had she done? How did she get to be doing this work for companies? And she put me onto what then became consciousness coaching. So I went through that program, and then I started coaching at my previous company whilst I was, in addition to doing my sales role. And I started to notice while I was coaching that there's actually a bigger cultural issue at play in all organizations that stops people performing at their best. So from there, I basically started to research and explore all things culture related, which brings me to today and the work that I'm doing with Anne. So maybe Anne, you can carry on from your background.
Yeah, so Jen and I share this passion to transform organizations and really flipping the model on what is currently happening in organizations. So a bit of background on my journey is for 20 years I was in the corporate environment and retail, wholesale, engineering. And what I unconsciously did was breaking down silos that are typically in organizations and creating totally different types of teams and understanding team dynamics and performance within teams, and creating in those 20 years ago already self-managing teams. And the last 20 years has just been on a journey on understanding the genius in all of us and looking at performance in a different way and understanding that each one of us has an innate natural talent that we have. And how do we tap into that in an organization, in a team, and at individual level, at the family level? And that's where I believe with the two of us working in an organization, we can totally transform and affect the bottom line directly.
Yes, definitely. So this is the first webinar that we're doing in a series of 4. And as you saw from the invite, the focus tonight is on talent and perhaps a few things that you could do differently to, one, attract the right talent and then to retain the right talent. So I thought it would be, I know from Anne's work that she's spoken a lot about, this misalignment that's happening in companies. So I thought we could maybe start off there, and maybe you could tell us a bit more about what symptoms are you seeing in companies that you feel, that things are just misaligned, and hence the work that you're doing.
Yes, so typically when we're going into an organization, the typical symptoms of a misaligned company is absenteeism, so sick days. It's about blaming each other for non-performance. It's about not taking accountability and responsibility. There's a conversation that happens between managers and employees where it's about telling, not asking. It's about instructions, but not cooperation or collaboration. It's about it's the them versus us, and it's management's responsibility to sort out all the problems. So it's not this environment that it's aligned to. If you ask the employees or the managers what the purpose is of the organization, it's often not understood.
Yeah.
So they can't align with what's important to them, aligning that to what's important to the company. So that's how this misalignment exists and manifests in an organization.
It's kind of a frustration from both sides, both the company and the employee feel frustrated.
Yes. And that's where we're getting with those employment disengagement figures. The Gallup survey of 2015 showed that 70% worldwide is disengaged, and for South Africa they're talking about 90% disengagement. So that means 1 in 10 people is actually contributing to the bottom line, to their fullest potential.
Yeah. And I actually saw that those stats haven't changed over the last 20 years, which is unbelievable.
Yes.
Even though a lot of work is seen to be done on the topic of engagement.
Yes, I think it's only now starting to say that we have to look at engagement at a different level, and that we have to focus so much more on leadership, that the leadership has to be, the leadership model has to change for the whole engagement to be different.
So, I mean, perhaps before we carry on, we have a poll that we'd like to put to you, and if you could maybe just engage with answering it. So the question is, what do you believe your greatest challenge is in organization? So attracting the right talent, retaining the right talent, employee engagement, leadership, or is it in fact something else? So I'll just give you a few seconds to answer that.
Okay, it would be interesting to see if it's other what it would be. And we should have actually allowed a little line to say that.
Okay. I don't know if maybe the person who's put, sorry, what are we seeing here? 36, okay. It seems like most people are struggling with attracting the right talent, which is good that you're here on the call tonight. But I wonder if the people that have put in other could maybe just in the chat box give us some insight as to what your real challenge is, because that would be very useful
for us, going forward.
Yeah.
Okay. So
and if we see that come through, we can maybe engage with that a bit later.
Okay, so it looks like 66% are struggling with attracting the right talent.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. We'll keep that in mind when we carry on with when we having the conversation.
Yeah. Yes. So, I mean, just carrying on from this concept of alignment. So, what would flipping the model look like when in respect of talent and alignment?
Okay. So currently, when we're looking at attracting employees, we're looking at skills. Okay, we have a job description. These are the positions that are available, and we're looking at people that fill the skills to support that position. However, most of us have got skills that are not aligned to what is important to us or to our natural talent.
Yes.
So we're attracting people that have got the skills, but that haven't got the right behavior, or that are not aligned to the company's vision and purpose.
Yeah.
So, and I understand that when you're looking for talent, you are looking at filling the gaps within the organizations, but there's so many different ways of doing that. It could be reshuffled in an organization. The thing is, we need to understand what is required from an organizational point to achieve what the company wants to achieve. So looking top down first, looking what team we actually are needing to put in place, and then attracting the right people that have an innate natural talent, but with the same values and aligned to the purpose of the organization, and a clarity on the purpose of the organization and their own purpose and their own genius self.
Yes.
So they can see how do they add value and contributing so that the company can actually have the impact that they actually want to achieve, because each company wants to make a difference, have an impact.
So if I was sitting in the audience as HR or as anyone, I guess, related in hiring and managing people, and I am currently operating my business in, looking for skills, then hoping that fits in with the team, and then hoping that team can deliver on the organizational goals, etc. How would I start to shift that?
Okay.
So let's say I agree with you that natural strength is really what's going to get a team to be highly engaged and perform at their highest level. But because it is such a kind of structural, operational shift in how we do things, how would I start that process?
Okay, I want to share with you a slide. I'm just going to go over to the slide. So first I'd like to share this slide with you. So in the past, so that's what we're talking about, flipping the model. So we're starting from, the left-hand side is the linear thinking that we're talking about. So it's incremental little changes. So we're looking at the individuals that needs to fit into a team that fits into the organization.
Yeah.
But now what we're doing is exponential means that one person is going to affect the whole organization. So we need to have clarity of the purpose and the vision and the values of the organization. So we're starting from the top. So understanding what are the values that we are looking for, what are the values that we are attracting, what are the roles and functions that needs to be performed in an organization to be able to deliver that. So then we're going from an organization level, we're looking at teams. So we're not talking teams like we used to talk in the past about IT, HR, finance. We're talking at how do we best serve our product or our service and deliver our product or service to our customer base. What structures would be needed to be able to deliver that? Yeah. Only from when you understand what structures do you need, then you're creating the individual parts that makes the whole team. So we're looking at collaborative environments where disruption is possible at all levels of the organization. So it requires a whole different environment where there's language of coaching, there's fierce conversations. So it's absolutely a totally different environment. It needs to be flexible, it needs to be moving, it needs to be morphing with what's happening in an organization, and that it can change at a much faster pace.
Which companies clearly need, because the rate of change today is far greater than 5, 10, certainly 15 years ago. So you could keep doing business as usual for decades and not see a consequence. Whereas now, if you did that, you'll be under, your competition will weigh.
Yes. They're talking now that they say that change is so rapid that everything in an organization could change every 18 months.
Yeah.
So because we need to adapt to the technology, but however, because we're not wired physiologically to be coping with change, it becomes very difficult to deal with. So we need to create an environment where that is possible. Where people are comfortable with change, where people are actually looking for change and disrupting themselves, disrupting organization. We're hearing the words that we continuously hear are exponential learning and disruptive economies, disruptive companies, disrupting yourself, collaboration. Those are all words that we have to incorporate in organizations.
So how do we start? How do we start creating an organization that is adaptive, can handle change at a very fast rate, that is strengths-based? Where do we start?
Okay, so where we go in with the two of us would go in is understanding what the purpose and the meaning is of the organization, and how they can, if they're clear on their values. Then we're doing a survey within the organization, is how clear is that to the employees? How is it aligned to their own values? Do the employees know what their own values are? How is working in that environment going to support them achieving their highest values? Then understanding where the issues are, the conflict, what the real issues are about, understanding what roles need to be played, ensuring that the right people are in the right roles. But there's actually a nice diagram that I would like to share with you, that we can talk around that. There's so many things, but it needs to be top-down driven, so that we have total clarity in the organization as a whole, understands what is currently the situation, what is the purpose and the meaning, what are the values that are currently in place, and each one, how are they adding to the completion of that purpose of the organization, and ensuring that the strengths of each individual in each team, and changing it so that the maximum is achieved out of each team and then individual at the same time. So you're looking at different, the graph that we have there is looking at the peoples that have got the strengths fit but not the values. We're looking at the the people where there is no fit at all. So those are the ones. I don't believe that I still believe that there is still a possibility.
Yeah.
I'd like to see that there's a genius, or I know there's a genius in everybody. It's just maybe not so clear to see all the time. So the perfect fit ones, those are the easy ones. The value fit and not strengths, it's also very easy because all it is just flipping the models, you know, the job descriptions, the roles and responsibilities. And often you can just let that team or that unit figure it out for themselves. It doesn't need to be driven by the organization because there's a natural understanding on how each one of us can add the most value in an organization.
So it's interesting because in my experience, I totally agree that a team can be self-managing and can come up with their own solutions to the problems that they're experiencing on the ground. I guess there's this underlying, in most organizations, there's this underlying reliance on hierarchy or waiting for the manager to make a decision.
Yes.
You know, despite the team potentially having the answers. So I quite like what you were saying about, you know, in order to potentially move away from that, it's this concept of how do we move away from silos, where you've got sales and marketing and operations all acting sort of independently of each other and quite often against each other. So they're all looking after their own team interests, but it's
a win-lose.
It's a win-lose relationship as opposed to what you're suggesting, which is more of a self-managing model, which, you know, you'll have you'll have a salesperson, a marketing person, an operations person, all in one team, and collectively they'll be achieving a goal, which means by virtue of that they're all on the same team, and they're also collaborating at the level of where the problems are at.
Okay.
Is that what you?
Yes, absolutely. I'm just thinking of an example. It's quite an extreme example. In the Netherlands, they've they're doing. So they've got you've got all the frail case centers. So they've got a lot of old people living in apartments. And then they have the government then sends people in. You know, one nurse that's going to look specifically after people with cardiac problems. So the way it's been structured in the past hasn't been, you know, it's at a central point, people are sent into the various areas to with their speciality. So what they've done there is they've created self-managing teams. So they created like blocks. So many blocks of streets and number of people. And they identify what are the needs within that, the number of people that are living in that area, and they then attract the people that they say, well, in this area we need this type of nurse, we need this type of doctor, we need. And as the population changes, they automatically, it's not from centralized government, it's done from that self-managing team that says, okay, well, the dynamics have changed, we need a different type of person, and they decide who. So even from a salary point of view, everything is decided at that team
level.
So that requires an environment where trust is implicit, which is a given for this type of organization, and this is a difficult part. But it is possible. It is absolutely possible. If you're allowing and there's that trust and you know that you've got the right people in fulfilling the right roles. But this is the exciting part because this is the only way that it can be moving and be flexible at the same time with the big change. Because in a block there may be one person that comes in with a totally different type of need, and that can be instead of the whole bureaucracy, bottom up, top down. Yes, and they've got access to all that information. So it's very transparent type of environment, which obviously requires a lot of trust.
So just coming back to the focus for tonight, which is about attracting and retaining the right talent.
I see that we've got a question on the other. I think it might have been that salary versus position, keeping talent and paying the right amount. as HR, how can this be done if management does not see the value of increasing salaries, no benefits in company? Yes, it comes back to, the belief, and I know HR is currently measured on matrix. We actually looked at a survey done recently. HR is measured on, the things that we can see. So the number of people, the turnover, which can be based on salary not being high enough. However, in an organization, and I understand salary is important, but the perception that people work just for salary, on all the surveys that are continuously put out there, it's not the top one.
It's only 3 or 4.
Yes.
Or lower.
Yes. However, if we can understand that first of all, management, it's all about leadership, isn't it? It's about valuing the individual and a corresponding reward for the specific value that they're adding to the organization. So I think it's more a leadership problem than retaining the right talent is actually a leadership requirement. I think if that is the environment that you're working in, that's what I would look at. Because leadership, if you understand, I've worked with teams where salary is, and especially in areas where, like the technological side, coding, that is, coders are in high demand. So they're working around salaries. That's always, I can have a higher salary somewhere else. However, I've worked with those teams, and when they understand how working in that environment is supporting them in achieving what's most important to them. So yes, they're earning a salary, but what is that salary about? So if they understand that earning that salary is for educating their children, it might be for that, or it might be for travel, or it might, whatever the purpose of the salary is, each one of us spends that money differently. So if we can understand that working in this environment supports them in fulfilling what their highest values are. So if it is, for example, travel, and we allow this person be in a role where travel is possible, suddenly salary won't be that much of an issue.
Yeah.
So it's understanding that the salary is the easiest one, but it's not always the deeper issue.
So in my experience, and this is more personal experience than anything else, salary became the issue when the other things weren't working. So, I mean, when you started a company, you're accepting a salary, and then you have a vision for how you'll be promoted and therefore get higher salary increases in future. And I mean, I remember specifically bringing up salary as an issue, but it was actually because the alignment and the way in which I wanted to contribute to the company was no longer a good fit. Yeah. And it was my excuse for, why things weren't working. So I often think it gets raised as the issue, but it's often not the actual cause of it. It's just an easier conversation to have. It's a lot easier to say I need a raise than to go to your boss and say, why aren't you valuing me? So I often think it's an excuse or a reason people give, but it's definitely number 3 or 4.
Yes. I want to come back to. I don't know why that happened. I hope everybody can still, if there's a problem with the screen, just let me know. I want to come back to attracting the right talent. So attracting the right talent, we think of, or in my perception when I had this talk, is based on skills, and it's based on what we can afford to pay people. So it comes back to salaries. However, attracting the right people also means that you understand as clearly as what you understand your organization to be about, that you understand your employee, what they are all about. So it's, the value strengths again. that will be you're never going to have the conversations of salaries unless it's really not aligned to market, because we're coming from the assumption that leadership is aligned to seeing the value of the individuals within the organization and are aware of the what is offered in the job market. But that needs to be clearly understood as what is the value that we are needing to fill. Yeah. What type of strengths do we need to fill that organization that's going to fit into the organization, that believes as much in what we believe in
and grow
and
as
grow.
It grows. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So that for me is one of the way we doing interviews, it should be totally different.
Yeah.
Skills can be added quite rapidly if the person is really interested and is aligned to the values of an organization. If the behavior and their strengths is aligned to what the organization is needed, skills are easy to be added.
Yeah.
There will be that internal motivation from the employee side to get there.
Yeah. And I guess once you get the alignment right from the beginning, once you get the clarity of vision and values and what you're looking for from a strength perspective from the beginning, you're more of a magnet for the right people. And because of that, you retain them with a lot less effort over the long term, because that fit was like a hand in a glove, as opposed to only the thumb fit, and now we have to develop this and that, and it's just a hard work process from beginning to end. Which is, I guess, what most companies are frustrated with.
Yes, that's what engagement is all about. Yeah. It needs to come from an inner motivation and taking accountability for themselves. So it's creating a totally different structure where accountability, responsibility, growth, development is taken at individual level and a team level rather than an organizational level, top down. It needs to be bottom up. It needs to be fitting from the bottom up. It has to be driven from the top in getting the right people in. And the retaining happens. I mean, you've been in organizations and I've been in organizations where we're totally aligned with what the company represents. As soon as you feel that it's aligned, you're immediately going to detach yourself. You're immediately going to have sick leave and find all sorts of excuses and blaming others. It's another typical symptom of a misaligned organization is, it's not my problem, it's your problem.
Yeah.
And that's why we've got in South Africa 9 out of 10 people disengaged, because we've got this very patriarchal structure where everything is top down driven, and I believe it's leadership's fault, because I don't think that the individuals don't have that power or that skill to be able to do that. It's just we've never been able to provide them with that environment where we can have those conversations and being able to say, okay, so how are we going to solve the problem? How are you going to do it? It's the same, for example, at school. You put into teams, and now you have to build a volcano. Kids naturally understand that, this one person in the team is, I know what I know what a volcano looks like, I'll draw it. So, that person will be able to do it. So then the other one will say, okay, I'll get all the materials. I'll make sure that we can do all of this. And the other one will say, okay, is there anything that you need? So he'll make sure that everybody is quite happy. Do you need water? Do you need... So each one of us as kids, in our teams that we did when we were playing or doing projects, we naturally did that.
Yes.
And somehow we've lost that because our education system tells us we must do this, and then we go to a work environment where it's the same. This is your job description, and these are the KPIs. Whether it's aligned to your strengths or whether KPIs are relevant in being able to achieve the company's vision, it doesn't matter. That's not taken into account.
Yeah.
I see we've got another question there. How do you teach adults values? Is it not too late? So it's a good question. So values, we all have values. We all have. So values for me is not what we naturally think of: honesty, integrity, passion, communication or openness, transparency. That's not what I'm talking about when I'm talking about values. Values for me is what is important for me. What is my purpose of getting up in the morning? What drives me? So for me, it is the first one, learning. So if I don't learn on a daily basis, I don't feel in flow. So the second one is connection with people. I need to connect with people. And the third one is travel. So if I can connect all three, I don't care about the salary, to be quite honest, because that's where I make a difference. So the values is what's most important to you. So if you're a housewife, it could be children. Jackie Kennedy, her highest value was she was determined she was going to have who was the mother of Kennedy?
I don't know.
Yeah, but now I've forgotten it. But what's his name? I can't even remember the Kennedy. What was his?
John?
JFK, yeah. His mother, sorry. Her highest value, she was determined. From the beginning, she knew that one of her kids was going to become a president. That was the thing she did, was according to that. So we all have, all our actions, behaviors determines what our values are. So in the interviewing, you can easily identify, for example, by asking the questions, outside work, what do you spend most of your time on? Where do you spend your energy on? What do you always have energy for? What do you always have money for? I always have money for another book or another trip or anything to do with connection and people. So that is what we're talking about, value. What drives the behavior? And the behavior, what drives is like what we spend our time on, what we spend our money on, what books we read is in our personal space, determines what is most important to us. So by asking these questions, if anybody requires that, I can send you a list. It's the Martini's value determinant, and I've used it I used it in all the coaching, I used it in all the team assessments, because if you understand what the strength is and what the individual really wants to achieve, you clearly from the onset understand that.
Yeah,
it's easy.
And everything else from there is downhill.
And you line it to what is right for the company, and it's aligned to the company's purpose. That's it. It's a fit.
Yeah, so I mean, I think you've done a lot of work on values, and you're able to find the common thread through the stories that people tell you about how they spend their time, what they spend their money on. So, I mean, it is a valid question because it's not something we ask ourselves every day, and it's certainly not something we can always articulate, this, and this as the top three things.
Yeah, I'll give you an example in a company where I was working, and it was a team that was functioning reasonably well. One of their top performers started not performing so well, and they were scared of losing her. When we did the value determination, one of her highest values was having an impact on communication, having impact on communities.
Okay.
Her strength was communication. Okay. So she worked in an she still works there and performing even better than what she did at the top of her performance. She works in an organization that is impacting, I don't know what's happening with this screen, is impacting communities. Yeah. So in the past, her role was admin related, but she was very, very strong in communication. So now she's been put in charge. She realized that she didn't need to move. She needed to move organization or start her own company, because she started thinking of creating her own company. Yes. Then she realized, no, she can do that within the company, but her role needs to be changed. So she went up to management and says, this is where I can add value.
Yeah.
And it impacted immediately the bottom line of the company, because their promotions was a revenue revenue stream they never thought of.
Yeah.
So You know, it was a win-win situation, and that's what happens when an employee understands that is the value that they can add, that's the strengths that they have, and how they can contribute within that organization. When they can see, wow, if I work here, I can live my purpose. I can contribute, because all of us want to make a difference. That's what we're all here for.
I think it's a very important point, because had she not discovered that value and been able to see how that can translate into a different role within the organization, she either would have stayed at that organization in that role and become very frustrated, and the company would have, at the end of the day, also become frustrated with her performance, and maybe sent her on motivational things, you know, how do we get her back to her normal, or she would have left and gone somewhere else, but still then played at that level of frustration, and then once she discovered the value, she's now on a whole different track.
She's in flow, and then that's how highest performance is going to be when you flow. Plus, the organizations, or where do you perceive yourself in your own organization, so that you understand a little bit more about vision, about values. So where do you think your organization is? Are 100% of the people aligned to the company vision and values, or 75, or 50, or 25? So I'm really curious on where you think your organization is. Yeah, you see, that's exactly what we're thinking. We don't have a clearly defined vision or values. Yes.
Give it a couple more steps to see.
And that's where Jen and I always come in, and that's where Jenna's strength is getting the companies to see their vision and the values and your strategic vision. The language that you're using, the leadership.
So it's interesting when you talk about vision, because I mean, for companies, just like for individuals, it all needs to be aligned. So when you know what your vision is and you're clear on your values, it's much easier for you to know what kind of people you need to drive that vision. It's much easier for you to know how, what people you're recruiting, what culture you need, how you communicate, and all of those things. And more specifically at the vision, I mean, it's interesting because I think a lot of companies have a vision statement, one liner that says, this is what we want to do in our industry. But I think it's not translated to a level that inspires the rest of the organization. So the founder or the CEO might have this vivid picture in his mind of how he wants his business to look in 3 years down the line, but nobody else in the organization knows what that picture looks like. And so the founder or the CEO or the leadership team often get quite frustrated because they feel that that the people aren't supporting in the way that they need to. And so what really needs to happen within organizations is that vision to become vivid in everybody's mind that works there, and then the contribution, because once they're clear on what needs to be done, they're also now contributing to how they can make that happen, as opposed to being told, these are the targets for the year, achieve them, when they don't have that bigger context of where we're going, why we're going there, and how they are contributing to that.
And also to see if it's possible to achieve what top at the top is decided that's going to be achieved. It's often not translated to see if it's really possible. And if the whole organization is aligned to that, or how this organization needs to be formed differently, or how the teams need to be looked differently, or what other skills or whatever else is needed. So it's so much top-down driven without the collaborative input.
I mean, the problem that we've noticed with top-down is that people aren't actually on board when it happens that way. Whereas when you've gotten the collaboration from the people on the ground and they're part of the solution, they're already on board with it because they were part of coming up with it. So, I mean, that also makes management life a lot.
And that's where you transfer accountability.
Yes.
And what's interesting, what I'd like us to talk about is, so I think we're complete with the poll. So it's quite split. Oh no, there's still, okay, we'll just close the poll. There's still a few votes outstanding. So it looks like a 50-50. So it's half of the, did I share it? Half of the people here feel that 75% of the people are aligned to the company vision, and 50% is we don't have clarity, a clearly defined vision or value. Yeah. Now I've lost my thought there. Yes. So how do we? What needs to be different in our language for people to understand that they have to take the individuals and the teams, that they take responsibility and accountability for achieving the company's target, is coaching language.
Yeah. And that actually came up in a book I read recently called Multipliers. Yes. Very interesting. We can drop the link, by Liz Wiseman. But she's basically saying exactly that. So, and the stats are incredible. She's saying that most managers are actually what she calls an accidental diminisher, which means that the people under their care are only showing up with about on average 40% of their full intelligence. Whereas when a leader shifts from that to what she calls a multiplier, and what she means by multiplier is really asking questions, getting people to play big, getting the team to find the answers, which is really the coaching methodology. So if a leader can start to adapt some of the ways of communicating that coaching teaches, they'll become multipliers of the people they lead, as opposed to accidental diminishers. So it definitely ties in. And what the research was showing was that, a multiplier, when they researched the people under a multiplier, they were saying that they were almost expressing that they showed up with more than 100% of their intelligence. And she was joking, to say that they're fucking up their stats. But what she really was saying when she dug into it was that those people felt like those leaders or those multipliers were discovering intelligence in them, or abilities or capabilities in them that they didn't even know they had. So it's not even just getting to the 100% of what you thought you were capable of, it's almost opening you up to even more possibilities.
That's where the exponential thinking happens, exponential organizations happen.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Anyway, how are we doing for?
I think we're doing well. I'd like to chat now how we go into examples of how we go into organization and supporting them and attracting and retaining employees.
Yeah.
So attracting employees, how we support the companies is to understand, even by the way we do a job description, for example, that we using the right language. So it's a coaching language to attract the right person. So for example, if you're looking for, I don't know what's happening. Okay. If you're looking for an accountant, and that accountant needs to be quite strategic, a thinker. So he would be on executive board, and the most important role that he would play wouldn't be sitting behind a computer and doing figures, but analyzing the figures and then interpreting and coming and supporting on the so making sure that your language is attracting the right people, even in job description. And also supporting the organization and understanding what role or what behavior is required and what strengths are required in the organization to ensure that you have a mix of different strengths. Often what happens in leadership, in recruitment, is we attract more of what we are. We multipliers of ourselves. That's the worst thing we can do. we need to attract the people that are different to us, that have got different abilities. So if I'm a strategic person, I can't surround myself with other strategic thinkers. It doesn't matter whether in admin or in finance or in whatever position. If they're strategic, they're going to come up with continuous ideas, which is not going to lead the company going forward. Or the other way around, if everybody is in operational activity and there's no strategic, there's not person with strategic strength, it doesn't matter what position it is. It doesn't. That's not important. But that strength needs to be around in a team, in an organization. So that needs to be understood as well. And then obviously aligning the values of the individual with the organization. So that is what I'm supporting companies on attracting the right talent.
Yeah.
And then on retaining the talent, then what we're doing the same is understanding where the conflict or the perceived conflict there is, because it's all it is just communication. It's actually always about communication. Understanding what is going to be the inner driver in that individual or within that team, because we can never look at an individual without looking at a team or the organization. Looking in isolation at an individual will never resolve all the things you want for an organization, really maximize their contribution.
I think the analogy that comes to mind for me is with sport. When a coach is looking at how to get a team to perform at the highest level, they're not necessarily looking for 11-star players. They're looking for players that have the skill to score a goal or defend the goal or be an attack or defense, but they're also looking to create the team that can best. And so if you all had strikers, you would, as soon as they got past the striker, you've got no one to defend. So it's definitely, sports already doing it, and businesses just need to get on the same page.
Well, rugby team. I just want to see if there are any other questions before we can see that I still shared the results here. I don't know what's happening here. Stop sharing results. Okay. I think before we end off, we want to just talk about what we're coming up. We'd like to get some feedback on that. Let me just put that questionnaire up. Oh, no, that's not the right one. So, as I said in the beginning, this is the first of our series where we're going to be doing 4. And each time we're going to cover different topics within the bigger scheme. So, things like leadership, self-managing teams, and then my favorite, having real conversations. But if you want to engage with us further, we are doing a workshop on the 15th, which will cover in more depth, how you can start implementing some of the stuff in your organization. 15th of August. Especially on the team strengths and dynamics. Yeah, so it's a 3-hour workshop, and we'll do practical exercises, and we can do role playing. We can do depending on, if you come with a couple of the same organization, we can take practical examples and work with that. So we're quite flexible on how the workshop will be. And then we also, as I said, we're going to do some more webinars. Maximization contributions, which you can engage with her directly, either for in-house, we can, schedule individual outside, depending on what works, as well as one-on-one conversations. Leave us either a message in the chat box, or you've got our emails, I think, that was sent out with the webinar forms, I think both our emails were on there. Yeah. Otherwise, our name, Jenna Hartley, it's jennahartley.com, Hartley. My name is Anne Barrett. Yes.
Did we have that poll?
No, it looks like we didn't do it correctly.
Okay.
I think we've got twice the same question, so we can't put it on. So if you can leave a note on what would work for you, and if you've got any questions before we would close off. So what do you enjoy the most in organization? What is for you the greatest fun?
I would say it's the getting to the bottom of the problems.
Yes.
So going in and just seeing what's really going on, and what aspects can we address, and it's always people stuff. It's always, and more specifically, it's the ability for any of us, I think, to have a real conversation.
Yes.
So I mean, so often we're fixing the wrong stuff, or we are putting a program in place, a recognition program or a reward program to try and increase engagement, for example. But if you just think about the word engagement, it just means talk to each other more. So I'm really fascinated by what's possible for companies if we actually just start having real conversations with each other, because then we can also adapt not only ourselves much quicker to what we should be doing, what we shouldn't be doing, but also we can come up with ideas, better ideas, quicker and more responsive to the environment around us. And for you?
For me, it's reclaiming the genius in individuals and in teams and in organizations, and just that's where the exponential side. If we each one of us reclaim our genius and understand what our role and our purpose is, and it's more than a multiplier. It's an exponential effect.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm very passionate about.
Yeah. And
see it all the time. So I look at performance. I never look at non-performance. I always look at how can we perform differently.
Yeah.
As opposed to non-performance. That's school stuff. I wasn't good at music. Now we focus on 20 hours of music instead of doing what I was good at.
Yeah.
And see, we've got a question here. Where can we get more information on the workshop? Yes, you can send us an email on ann@annbarrett.co.
We've obviously got everyone's email addresses,
yes.
so we can send an invite to everyone who's on the call.
Yes.
And you can just register via that link.
Yes. And it's going to be at Hotel Verde. That's just close to the airport, so it should be working for everybody from Somerset West area or from Cape Town. And we are planning to do one, because I know we've got people from Joburg here as well.
Yes.
And we'll set one up from Joburg as well. So we'll send you the links. And the other question was structure. I love putting a process and rules in place. I know, where we can put everybody in a box and everything will run. That's how we keep control.
So I kind of love that question, because I feel that it's because we don't have what we're talking about in place that you need processes and systems. So the less trust there is, the more you need rules and regulations to make everything work. And literally they're correlated. So, I mean, you can see time and time again how you have to put more and more steps or rules and regulations in place when there's distrust in an organization. So,
or total misalignment and no accountability or accountability or responsibility.
You asked what we like.
Yes.
Cool.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here.
And anything we can help you with, you know how to get hold of us. Ann@annbarrett.co.za and
Jenna@jennahartley.com. Awesome.
Thank you, guys. Bye.